All right, hey everybody, it is Tony and I am back. It is time for TTM Wednesday. Let's get to the first one. It comes from nearby South Bend and is Bob Kearney. Bob played 8 seasons in the big leagues, very sparingly. Majority of his playing time came between 1983 and 1986. Other than that, he was a part-time player. Didn't hit for a ton of home runs. Was a doubles machine, though, actually. A career high 24 doubles in 1984. Also had double-digit doubles. Say that fast. In 1983, 85, and 86, he wrapped up his big league career in 87 with the Mariners, where he played 24 games. He was a career 233 hitter. Had 27 home runs and 133 knocked in. Next TTM comes from Mr. Bill Virdon. Bill was the 1955 Rookie of the Year, where he hit 17 home runs, knocked in 68 with a 281 batting average. During the 1956 season, he was traded to Pittsburgh from the Cardinals, and he spent the rest of his major league career with Pittsburgh. He retired for a couple of years between 66 and 67, where he got into minor league coaching. He came back to the big leagues in 1968, where he only played six games and had 3 at-bats that season. Overall, for his career, he was sort of a light-hitting outfielder. Only 91 home runs and 502 driven in with a 267 batting average. But I was able to ask him a couple of questions, and he responded. I asked him, when you were playing the outfield, who did you hate to see most at the plate? And he said Hank Aaron. I asked him who the toughest pitcher he faced was, and he said Sandy Koufax, and his favorite ballpark was Forbes Field. Mr. Bill Virdon is getting up there in age, so if you do have a chance to get his autograph, do so. He is free. My last baseball return comes from Mr. Verne Law. Mr. Verne Law played all of his major league career with the Pittsburgh Pirates, helping the Pirates to the 1960 World Series. And in the 1960 season, he was an All-Star and a Cy Young Award winner. Mr. Verne Law, between 1959 and 1960, he had 38 complete games. He had 20 of those in 1959, 18 in 1960, where he was 20-9, his only 20-game winning season. Overall in his career, he had 119 complete games. Won't happen now. That is for darn sure. According to his Society for American Baseball Research page, he was a volunteer coach with BYU along with his son, Verne Law. Vance was the head coach for BYU for a number of seasons. Verne Law was the volunteer coach, and Verne, in his 70s and into a little bit of his 80s, he would pitch batting practice for the BYU Cougars. Verne Law does charge $10 an autograph. He was $8 for the longest time. It looked like recently that he had upped his charge to $10, but you do get inscriptions. 2 TTMs come from the Gridiron. The first one is from Mr. Jim Lachey. He is a graduate of that school south of Ann Arbor, the whore, and east of the greatest city in the United States, South Bend. Lachey was a first-round pick out of that school in Columbus, 12th overall to the San Diego Chargers, now Los Angeles. He played 3 seasons with San Diego, had a Pro Bowl in 1987 with the Chargers, then moved on to LA, where he played with the Raiders for 1 game before moving to the Washington team, which if you have missed, they have officially no longer going with the Redskins. They are coming up with something new, but enough about that. With that team in Washington, He was a two-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion in 1991, where Washington defeated Buffalo pretty handedly in the Super Bowl in Minneapolis. Lachey retired in 1995. Overall, on his offensive line career, he played in 131 games, started 129 of them. Not much else to say about offensive linemen other than they go to Pro Bowls and they play a lot of games. And then the last TTM comes from Merrill Hodge. Hodge was listed as a fullback with Pittsburgh and Chicago throughout his career. He played mostly with the Steelers between 87 and 93. Played very briefly with the Bears in 1994. He was an all-purpose type running back. Had almost 1,200 yards between rushing and receiving in 1988. Also had just a smidge over 1,100 yards in 1990 with the Steelers as well. Also missed the 1,000 all-purpose yard mark in 1991 with 989 yards. He was, for the longest time, an ESPN analysis. I'm not sure what he does now. Don't really watch ESPN. But in the 1989 playoffs, Hodge rushed for 100 yards in a win over Houston, 26-23, and then rushed for 120 yards in a loss to Denver, 24-23. And those were his playoff highlights. He didn't have many yards in the 1992 playoff game. In fact, he didn't have any yards in that 1992 playoff game. The big loss to Buffalo. That's probably why the Steelers lost to Buffalo in 1993, because Merrill Hodge didn't play or didn't have any yards. And in the next season against Kansas City, he had just a bit over 70 yards. Rushing and receiving, and a loss to Kansas City. Merrill Hodge returned 101. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great one. Bye-bye.